in Sefer Yetzira Mishnah Zayin in Perek Aleph, and we're learning about 10 intelligences that are the lights that come forth first from the collective in order to dress up the life force and give it form. And these 10 forces are so close to the original source that we don't call them form. Form is already a dress. It means that this is not the life force itself. Form means that now the life force is taking on a shape and a size, taking on new properties, new quantities, new qualities. All these are part of the form. But here we're still beyond form. These are the intelligences that design form. This is where the intelligence dressed up. He's still himself. He's not yet a form. But he is considering the shapes and the sizes of the forms that are going to form. All the forms are going to be under the Malchus. The Malchus is the last one of these intelligences that's going to collect all the instructions from everything that comes above her. Why? Because this is the form of the life that is going to be delivered to her through the Yesod. And so that's already going to have all the instruction from the higher intelligences. And then through Yesod it's going to come into the Malchus. And in the Malchus there's going to be a hierarchy of angels that deliver the form to the life force until she becomes exactly as she is right this moment. For example, the letters, the syllables, as they're coming out of my mouth, this is being directed. This is a form that was decided at the highest level. It just spilled into all these vessels from the highest levels, from the highest worlds, all the way down to the lowest worlds, which is the world of Asiya. And the world of Asiya gave the form already enough of a definition that it can come into the vessel, called the guf, and then the vessel took on the form and is saying the words, the syllables coming out of my mouth. This is coming from there. It traveled through all that in the blink of an eye. It's not at the speed of light. This is happening instantaneously. There's no delay in this process. Once it comes into the form, it travels at the speed of light. But before it comes into the form, it's instantaneous. The form is only in the guf. The guf is the vessel that receives. But before it came into this vessel, why did it receive these words now? Where are these words coming from? These words are coming from the life force that dressed up in the original 10 intelligences. The last one was the Malchus, which received from the Yesod, and this was exactly how it was received. Going through all the different vibrations of the angels, which are the stars that we can see and the stars that we can't see. All these are vibrations that are giving form to the formless. And then it comes into me. And then my organs receive the vibrations and they know their instruction. And then there is the process where my brain is interpreting all that to the situation at hand. What are we trying to accomplish? Oh, we're learning Sefer Yetzira. Oh, there are words. All these become vessels to this infinite force. And now through these words, through these understandings, through this Sefer that was transmitted throughout generations for thousands of years, the life force is receiving form that in no other way would it have ever received. The same intelligences, but never would this have been the vessel. Only through all these specific efforts that created these words in this way at this time. Now the form that dressed up the formless looks like this. And so these 10 intelligences, they're present everywhere because we are small worlds. if something animates us, that force, specifically that force, dwells in the highest realms. Over there, he doesn't look like that. Over there, you won't be able to talk to him the way that you talk in your own mind, because his presence would blow you away. He's so big. But your little version in your little world, which is not so little, by the way, it just seems little because it has tiny representations called cells that represent all the parts of it, but it's as big as the entire real one. And so in that world, the forces speak with each other, the forces decide who's in charge, the forces decide who's going to be in charge of who and who's going to make the decisions. These forces that are in our minds, that we boss around, they now instruct the world of thought, and their bosses are showing up in their place. The force, the big one, he comes. And so this is the nature of reality, is that everything is built one on top of the other. The lenses are laid one on top of the other. And so when I raise my voice, Gabriel, the angel, the archangel, now had to assist me in that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's true, he didn't do it himself, in the sense that my voice doesn't contain the power of Gabriel. Gabriel can do a bit more than that. But his force, his power, his ability had to be given over to the angels below him so that I could be able to do this. If there was no Gabriel, there was no raising a voice. That's now. Not 6,000 years ago, not 14 billion years ago. That's now. If there was no Gabriel, there would be no raising a voice. And so here we are shaking the worlds. It's true, we're holding on from a place that seems to be relatively simple and small, very fragile. It's fragile because it wasn't meant to go into enemy territory. It's a delicate one. It was meant to be respected. If he would want us to go to war with each other, he would build us out of iron. That wasn't the intent. If he would want us to not be kind to each other, then he would make our organs feel okay with it. And so he designed us with all these sensitivities because this is how he sees us. This is his will for us. This is the way the 10 intelligences envisioned us. And that's why they made us. And so when the life force dresses up in the 10 and it comes into the Malchus is activating the angels. The angels are messengers of the divine. And this means that whatever it is that you are doing, if you are misinformed and things are not working your way, it's never that the system is wrong. It's always that you're wrong. Because the angels are receiving now. It's more alive than you. What the world gives you back is more alive than you. Whatever formulation, whatever form your life took on, that form is a reaction exactly to the input. There is never any error. It can never go wrong. Why? The angels are receiving now. So where's the problem? How can there be a problem? The problem is humans have their own power to direct the world of thought. And therefore, when humans will direct wrong, the humans themselves will come say, hey, look, it's wrong, it's not working right. Look what it's doing, it's hurting everyone. It's not hurting anyone. We are hurting everyone. The way that we think is offensive to the life force. Therefore, humanity is getting hurt. And it will not stop until they change. It cannot stop because this is the nature. This is how it was designed to be. It must be this way. This is the best way it can possibly be. But it will only work when humanity will try to understand their nature so that they can align with their nature. As long as each one is busy just with his own story, humanity cannot heal. Humanity will heal when we all see all, when we are all beneficial contributing members of the collective that know how to protect the collective. The collective includes all the individuals. And the main protection that's needed, the main place where we need to be careful not to hurt the collective, is in the world of thought. That's where they're most hurt, and that's where we have to focus in order to make sure that we don't hurt. It requires great wisdom. It requires a deep understanding of the nature of what we are interacting with. And so this is called the Malchus. When we say that something is wrong with the settings in the world, we are directly offending the Malchus. The Malchus says, no, it's not wrong. You guys are heading in the wrong direction. You're getting exactly what you're ordering. You're not paying attention. You expect someone to clean up after you. It will be cleaned up after you, but it won't be pleasant. And so these are the 10. These 10 are what culminate in the Malchus, and therefore this is the kingdom, this is the will, this is the design, this is what we have to learn to respect. Because it did it already. We can't argue with it. We weren't designed to argue with it. And then when it aligns, then His kingdom gets revealed. This is what we're all praying for. This is what we're all waiting for, is that His kingdom should be revealed. Where's His kingdom? His kingdom is what we inhabit. That's His kingdom. Send out the strangers and you will see a kingdom. And this kingdom, when it's revealed in the collective, is revealed in every individual. Then there won't be anyone who will violate this will ever again. There will be no taking credit, because obviously you will do your nature. What else is there? Now we can have credit because everyone is so foolish. It's like, oh, he was a little less foolish. He was a little less foolish. But as soon as everyone will align with the truth, there will be no praise in doing what's right for humanity. Obviously, what else would you do? Wouldn't you want to shine as brightly as you can? Because this is what life desires. And so these are the spheres. The spheres are constantly coming into existence and giving everything that exists existence. Specifically in this way, specifically in this form. So here it says the Mishnah Zayin, Ese spheres bli ma, no et soifam betchilosam betchilosam besoifam, keshel heves kshira begacheles. He tied the end to the beginning and the beginning to the end, like a flame that's tied to the coal. Meaning that life is running in a cycle. The Keter receives a will, it goes to the Chachmeh, it comes down through the Bina. The Tiferes leans towards the Chesed and the Gvura. He gives to the Yesoid through the Netzach and Hoid. And then the Malchus receives. Now that the Malchus received, what happens next? Keter, a new Ratzon. Based on this, what now? And then it goes in a cycle. This is how life happens, the cycle of life. The happenings create the thoughts create the happenings, and then the happenings create more thoughts, and then more thoughts create more happenings. This is part of the Chachma of the Torah, is if we want to control your thoughts, we have to control what you do, because your thoughts are busy with what you do. It goes in a cycle. If we only have half the cycle busy, if we only tell you what to think and we don't tell you what to do, then eventually you're not going to be thinking it either. because you're going to be thinking what you're doing. And so doing is the securest way to get into a mind, is by doing. If we speak just about thinking, then the thinking will also get lost. It doesn't have a vessel, it doesn't have a form. And so the end, the malchus, the results, are tied to the will, which starts again the cycle of the results. And the will is tied to the results are tied to the will, like a flame and the coal. That the flame that comes out of the coal is nothing more than the fire that's in the coal. If there was no fire in the coal, then there would be no flame. And so they're tied to each other. The fire within the coal will always make a flame, and the flame cannot be there without the fire. And so the same way, all of creation comes out from the source, like the fire that comes out of a coal. The source of life is the coal, and creation is like the flame that keeps on coming out. And it's constantly coming out, it's constantly filling the vessel. The way that we prepare the vessel, this is how the life force is going to dress up. Shadon yochid ve'en l'sheni, because there's only one master and there isn't a second. V'lifnei echad mata sefer. One is already a form. Can you count before one? That's where the master is. The master resides before one, because he cannot be counted. When we say he is one, it doesn't mean like one when we have something we can count and we say it's one. When we say one, we mean that there isn't any other. The source has no other. But over there isn't one who would say one. There isn't a concept of one. One is only something that becomes when there is form. And then there can be two. And therefore there is one. And there is nothing, none of that. It's before all of it. Now we'll look in the parish. Es spheres blima not soif mit khalasan parish soifa ni keser elyon. Ki keser elyon nikra soif ve ilas nikra ein soif. So he says on the not soifa mit khalasan that the keser elyon, which is the source, the first vessel to receive from the source, is tied to the source, to the end of the source. And so it is in every world, that the malchus of Atzilus is what gives to the keser of Bria. It goes to the next world, and the same by the malchus of Bria, it gives to the keser the Yetzira. And so all these worlds are giving to each other, and the keser is tied to the higher world. And so they said the keser is called soif. Why is the keser called soif? Because it's the end of the Atzilus. It's the highest beginning point from where everything starts coming forth. After he warned you not to try to think about the Keser Elyon, because he said that it's not something that can be contained in form. That everything that you will find in reality, even now, if something is happening now, it's coming out yesh ma'ayin, it's coming out from the keter to the chachma, and from there it's going to receive form, and that's why it is the way that it is. And so don't assume that there could be any detail in what was or is or will be that doesn't go through that point in order to receive existence. And so the spheres, they start with the Keser Elyon, and the lowest one is the Malchus. And so the Malchus is tied to the Keter. So the flame is tied to the coal. So the same way, every sphere that comes out is tied to the power above it, like a flame is tied to a coal. So if there wasn't a keter, if there wasn't that will, then there wouldn't be a chachma, there wouldn't be any instruction, there wouldn't be a result of that will if there wasn't that will. And so they're tied like a coal to its flame. The flame is blinking out of the coal. It doesn't have its own existence. It cannot be that the effect will happen without the cause. Just like you can't have a flame without having a coal. That the malchus is like a flame that comes out from the source, and the flame is coming from the source. The flame needs that source, but the coal itself, which is where the fire resides, that coal doesn't need the fire and doesn't need the flame. He has his own existence. And so the same way, the source from where everything comes forth is like the coal that doesn't need the fire. Then there is the flame within the coal, the fire within the coal, that comes forth from the coal. And then there is the flame that comes out of that fire, that's tied to the coal, and without it, it wouldn't exist. Here he explains something about the nature of the unity, where we say that he's one, like we spoke about before, that it doesn't mean that in his essence we can call him one, because even the word one wouldn't apply to his essence. So it says, V'yesh hefresh ben echad v'yochad im yuchad. There's three ways of speaking about the unity. Echad means one, yochad means also one, but yochad means an individual. And meyuchad means one who is united. So there's three names for one. So he says the difference is when the single force dresses up as two opposing forces, then we call him meyuchad. It means that there are separate parts, but they are united as one. So by Kiryas Yamsuf, where he is rescuing the ones that he loves, and he's drowning the ones that are opposing his will, there we call him miyuchad. Why? Because he dressed up in two attributes at the same time. While he was being kind to some, he was being cruel to others. And so therefore, in such a situation, he's called miyuchad. His forces are united. Together they do what they do, but he's not called one that is completely one without any separation, because there are opposing forces that are operating within his name. If he operates with one of the sides, meaning that, let's say he is just doing punishment, then we call him yochid. Yochid means he is the only force that can cause something like this to happen. He's the root, he's the reason why it happens, he's the one, he's the individual responsible. But still, there's conflict, because he's using his force, the force of the individual, is going against something within creation. And so he is the individual that's responsible, but we can't yet call him completely united. When he shows his love and he makes no distinction, he creates a situation where he can be kind to everyone without any distinction. And this is the secret of the higher name. The name, when there's a revelation of the intelligence, the higher name gets activated, and then he is kind to whoever he wants to be kind. He is compassionate to whoever he wants to be compassionate. He has no limitations. He finds favor within each one in order to give them the guidance that they need to come back to his path. And so when that happens, and so it says an example, what would be an example for that happening? Kegoin, Kol Yisrael Mumrim, all of Klal Yisrael is off the path. Not just like today, where they're all off the path because they're so badly mistaken about what they're trying to accomplish, but off the path in the sense that they object to the rule of the one. That they're so offended with what happens in this world that they go to war in their minds and their hearts with the one who created life. And so if all of the people are like that, God forbid, he says, I get it. It's tough down there. It's really not nice that they had to go through so much suffering until they lost their minds. I want to show up there and I want to tell them the truth. I want to make them see the light. And so when that happens, that's when Nikra Echad, that's when he's called one. Why is he one? Because all the parts that he dressed up in are now considered as the one that they are. Before, when he was going against them, we can say he is the individual, he's the Yochid, but we can't call him one. Within his kingdom, within his parts, there's conflict, there's war, there's suffering. But when all the parts are lit up because he decided to be kind to all, without any justification, without needing them to plead to him, he's the one that's showing up and showing favor. In that time he's called Echad. It says, no, tzofim b'tchilosan, kshem shesibo shelo adam yamachshava, ratzulay me'ahirer, ki me'ahirer nisayr al-ruach. And so it says the beginning, the cause of man is thought, which is the thought within his heart. As a concept rises within him, it awakens the spirit, and then then the spirit acts through the man. And so he has a thought, this creates the spirit. Then the spirit dresses up in the body and manifests that thought. I have, in the world of thought, words that I would like to say, and those create a spirit, and those spirits animate my body and make my mouth move so that the words can come out. And so the Ruach, the spirit, poel pilosa bekoach emesh, it takes out the act by the power of the fire, the air, and the water. At shehoitzi agoylem betipa b'tziras yud debor Chaim amenu nifalu kol chaloka v'sedarav. And so through the thought can create thought, the thought can create speech, the thought can create action. And the main action, the main thing that a human being creates is children. He creates seed that's going to become human. And so even that seed, where did the seed start? Where did I start? I started as a thought in someone's brain. That thought awakened the spirit. That spirit did an action. That action became me because he created seed with that action. And so where did I start? I started as someone's thought. And from there it came forth. And so within that seed, within that tipa that's betzuras yud, that has the shape of the letter yud, which means it hasn't yet spread, not in the width and not in the length, it's still a dot that's filled with potential. Iboy ruach Chaim, within this drop there is the spirit of life that has the potential to create an entire body. From there came forth all my parts, everything, the shape that it is, the size that it is, the ability that it has. Everything that made me speaking these words possible was somehow included in that seed. and the force of life that was present in that seed made it become me so that it can express these ideas at this point in time. And so you see that the source and the root of all that came forth was in the world of thought, because you can trace all the details of what came forth to the thought that caused it to come forth. That's when it started receiving this form. And then it proceeded from there. And everything that happened from there was based on it receiving that form in the world of thought. And then it came into the world of action. And then it received a life force and formed for itself a body and came out and developed its own ability to speak and picked up information. And all that was based on a form that started already in the mind before the creation of the seed. So in the same way we did that, we traced back everything that happened to this thought until it became a seed, until it became a human. We traced it all the way back to the beginning of the thought. The same way you do with the spheres. Everything that you see that manifested into reality, you trace it back to the spheres. Nothing came forth if it wasn't first somehow present in the Keser Elyon, in the highest crown, in the first sphere. It's just like the flame cannot be present without the coal. So there can't be anything that receives existence from the source without the higher thought, without the world of thought that is the simple thought, the thought that is before creation. We have the complex thought that's based already on a combination of organs. From here you're supposed to understand the source does all these actions that come out into the physical world without him changing in any way. Nothing changed because everything is coming forth according to the forms, according to the vessel. The source doesn't change. All this is like a blink coming out of the source. How is it going to look? It's all based on the vessels and their condition and everything that happened till now. He's not changing. All the workers, all the movements, all the forces take from him. He's the reason for everything that gets done. He doesn't have a second that's involved in what can happen. Just like you can't find what's moving your thought, so too we can't find what's moving beyond the spheres, what's causing it. It's coming forth from the source. And this is where it receives enough form so that we can discuss it. Although Mishnah Ches, essa spheres blima bloim picha meledaber velipcha milaharer. 10 spheres that you cannot really get to the bottom of because they are so much at the root of creation. And so it says you have to learn how to stop your mouth from speaking, velipcha milaharer, and your heart from racing. That if a person contemplates the size of these, if a person really gets a taste of what's happening here, it can be big on his nerves. He has to learn slowly how to go into the realness of life and interacting with the real forces and seeing the way things really are. And so when things become too much, he diverts to a different subject, or he gets more busy with the body in order to ground himself, in order to come back to the space where he is. So it says, if you see your heart is racing, return to the place, remember yourself. Become present again, return to your body. And then you can go again and learn more about the nature of reality. And then again, come back to your body. Therefore it says, the life force goes back and forth. The life force is constantly coming, it's showing up, and then it returns. It's showing up, and then it's returning. The same way us, the consciousness within the life that's trying to perceive the source, he goes towards it, and he comes back. He goes towards it, and he comes back. Because the greatness of the source can consume. And so the vessel has to gain strength while it's also gaining access to the deeper dimensions. This is the covenant that we have with the source, is that we are going to create life on this side of the aisle. This side of the aisle means within the Shekhinah, within the souls that are in creation, is a portion of the divine that has come forth into this state that is right now in exile, in order to help and create the dwelling place for the Shekhinah, in order to reveal the light, reveal the glory of the source. And so there's a covenant between the place where we come from, the source and the reason of why we came, where there's freedom, where there's infinite light, and the individuals that are within the exile that are doing the work for this light. The life that surrounds the universe has a covenant with the life that's within the universe. And we as a nation represent that covenant. We have the bris that HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed to Avraham Avinu, because we represent this covenant, we represent this understanding between creator and creation. And this is the wisdom that relates to that covenant. The Sefer that we're learning now, the Sefer Yetzira, it reveals the wisdom that relates to this covenant. It reveals the importance, the sacredness of the form that the divine has revealed himself in, so that we can remember the covenant that the divine has with this form, that the divine has with all who respect this form. And so this covenant is so that we approach the infinite, and yet we respect the need to maintain the vessel, to respect the dignity of the vessel, so that we can dwell on this side of the aisle, so that we can remain embodied and we can create a dwelling place for the divine. This says, Bloim picha meledaber. This now we're going to the parish. B'inyan hanefesh tzarich ata linoi tzoif asiyasa shel odem b'tchilosoi, shu ha-machshava. Parish b'mishnah. So when a person does something, you should tie that to his thoughts. It's coming forth from that world. The Olam Asiyah doesn't receive life only after it's gone through the world of thought, and there it received its form, and therefore the action came out the way that it came out. The Parish b'mishnah shelifnei zos, v'im tam ech yitzari b'machshava atayr dvarim keilu, v'lo pshita, or nilmen rai v'ekesh Hashem alei sedes, l'chen yone b'leim pichem l'davar. Parish kasher teshal shel kol prota nimtzoes b'nefesh ad makam adibur she'atiferes, ki ad kan nitn shes l'davar, makam v'aliyat rash l'davar, nitn dim yila nistem in anigla, so it says, in the world of thought, there are so many details, Some of them are aligned with the truth and some of them are not aligned with the truth. And so you might ask, how do you know how to connect this thought to anything higher? Because if the will dressed up specifically this way now, then how can we say that there are parts of it that I need to somehow repair? How could there be some type of a conflict within a thought that is coming from the thought that is simple and united and belongs to the one that created all? And so the first question would be, how can the thought be corrupted in the first place? Where would it come from? The second question would be, and now if we say that there is some type of an issue with the thought, with the world of thought, how do we know that the source, how can we tell what's going on in the source? And so it says, these things do not apply to reality. This is the imagination trying to take things out of context. But the thought of man cannot necessarily understand how his own thought got corrupted. He cannot necessarily understand the nature of how he's supposed to interact with the world of thought. But everything beyond man has had no contamination. We cannot speak about anything that is beyond man, because everything that's beyond man is what designed the perfection that allows for man to be the way that he is. And man, through his own foolishness, and yet we don't know who to blame for his foolishness, and yet man with his own foolishness somehow is causing himself harm. And this we can perceive, we can see the harm that man is doing to himself, and therefore he suffers. And so what applies below man doesn't apply above man. If your heart wants to compare what is not perceivable to what is perceivable, you want to somehow draw within your mind things that are way beyond human perception, that are not possible to be perceived. Shuv lamokam, then return. Perish hikones bebinoscha misham ter de lamokam asher yadas kiboinit neshis leper dav velev laharir. Says, don't think about the things that are beyond your perception. Be concerned with the things that are within your perception. That's where you need to do your work. That's where you can operate with your speech, and that's where you can create the unity that is required of you. But don't be concerned about the things that are beyond human perception. ועובדו זה נכנע בלספר, שנחקקו אלה שש צירס הנשפוס מבריס יסוד העולם בצלם העליונים, כדי להסתכל בהם ולא בנעלם מן הדס. It says the bris is that we're only supposed to do what's within our power to do here. The covenant that we have with the source is that we are going to do according to what he created us here to do, and we're not going to try to perceive things that are beyond what we can perceive. And it says, כי אם ישמץ החוי כלך כמה שאין בדעתי יכול להשיג, על יעל הדעת השליח על הנמלה, לבד, אלא אף מה שאוהב בכוח מטרם לכן להשיגוי, יחלש ולא יכול עליו. If one is going to try to perceive things that are beyond his perception, if one is going to try to imagine things about what we cannot know, so then he's going to lose his ability to identify what he can know. His mind is going to get tired from what he's trying to accomplish, and it's no longer going to be able to accomplish what he was able to accomplish before. והמשל בזה, הסבל שיש בכוח הליס לשני קיקרים ולא עוד, על יסם הצביר צלו יסו המסור חצי קיקר יכולש ולהיכליס אפילו שניים קיקרים שבכוח הליס לתחילה. So one who is carrying a heavy weight, if he carries beyond the weight that he could carry, then he won't be able to carry even what he used to be able to carry, because he is reducing the energy within the system. Then it won't be able to perform the way that it usually can. The same goes for one who tries to perceive beyond what he can perceive. And therefore he says, don't try to interact with the worlds that are beyond you. Try to interact with the worlds that are revealed to you, the worlds that you know, the worlds that you deal with on a daily basis, the thoughts that you have, the way that you're directing the world of thought. That's where you start. And as things get revealed to you, you interact with them. But don't try to figure out things that are beyond your level, because then even the things that you can control, even the things that you can help yourself with, even the things that you can realize will become out of reach. Mishnah Tes Esa Sfiras Bli Ma Achas Ruach Alim Chaim Baruch Im Baruch Shmo Shel Chai Elomim Kol V'Ruach V'Dibur V'Zeu Ruach HaKodesh. The 10 spheres represent one spirit. This spirit is called the divine spirit, the spirit of life, Ruach Aleim Chaim. And his name is blessed for eternity because he is the life within the worlds. The life within the worlds represents the Yesod, and the Malchus, the Shechina, is the one that receives that life and becomes alive. And we are all portions of her. And so how does this force become alive? Kol v'riach v'dibur, through sound, voice, wind, and speech. These are all designed by very specific organs. Very specific equipment is necessary to make the sound as the air is coming out of my mouth. And then there's a very specific design for the movement of the lips and the teeth and the tongue in order to make the sounds. And so the lungs, as they receive the will from the heart, they exhale the air specifically with the right amount of pressure so that it will create a sound. And then as that air comes to my teeth, to my tongue, to my lips, it receives form where I interfere with that air from coming out. The way that I interfere with that air to come out, that's what's causing the sounds to take on different shapes. And so this is being written into the air as I'm speaking. I'm creating a collective spirit. And so this spirit, at its root, is called Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. This spirit, when it knows itself, when it knows what it's doing and why it's doing it, when it's self-aware, then it's called Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, the Divine Spirit. Says the Ravid, Hine, b'zoy samishn ovay levay lechom huskal svira v'svira kum medama anister al nigle. He's comparing over here the revealed to the hidden. From the revealed you'll understand the hidden, even though you can't say that they're the same thing. There isn't really a relationship, but there's some type of a correlation where you can realize the formula from the revealed. You shouldn't think that, we're saying before that you can describe the spheres. It's not just the spheres that you can describe. You can't even describe a human body. If you try to describe a human body, it would take you a lot of words to realize that you still haven't described it. If one knows what a human body looks like, then you can easily describe. You can say he was tall, he looked this way or that way. He wouldn't have an accurate picture, but he would have some ideas. But that doesn't mean you've described the human body. That means you're talking to someone who knows a human body. But if you're talking to someone who doesn't know a human body and you try to describe a human body, you cannot describe it in words. Words wouldn't be enough to do it. They don't have the capacity. So don't think that just in the spheres the tongue cannot reach. Even the human body, the animal or animal's body. So there's no language that has enough words. And specifically for the spiritual forces that animate the body. Over there we don't have a language other than Lashon HaKodesh to describe what is moving. In the ancient languages they would have it. Also today in the Eastern world, in the Hindu religions, they have descriptions about the internal movements. But the later religions, they're just describing external movement. They're just describing actions. But they're not describing the actual forces that live, that create life. So that you would actually be able to have a proper description of them. And so he calls spirit the force that animates the human body. And so this is a name for a spiritual entity. It's a name for a force that is not physical. It cannot be seen. We know about it from its movement. If a human would play dead, we would say he has no spirit. But when he is animated, then we see he has a spirit, because who is animating him? And so we call him spirit. The word is ruach, which means air. And so air, the external air, is not animated like in the human body, even though it's alive. But it's the potential to animate the human body is not activated in it until the human breathes it in. And then when that air is in his brain, the spirit can animate the body. And so this is based on the wind that blows. Like he says, he blows the wind, meaning he's changing his moods. So that means it's like a wind that blows, that now there's this kind of wind coming from this direction, now there's another wind coming from another direction. So in a similar way, the moods of a human being within the spirit that animates the body is constantly changing like the wind. But it says, Yashev Rucho Yiz Lemoim. So he will change his, like someone is very angry and he's very tight and he doesn't want to change his mind. And then when his spirit comes down, it all melts away. It's as if it never happened. Of course, a human being has a spirit. The spirit is not just air. There's something else that's animating the air over here. If you take a dead animal and you pump in all the air in the world, it's not going to come to life just because it's breathing air. It needs to have a spirit there that's animating that air. And then the breath can become life. If the spirit is not there, then the air alone won't animate it. And so this is even if all of his organs are still perfectly in line, it won't work because he doesn't have the spirit that's alive. He doesn't have the divine spirit that gives life and animation to the breath. So the doctors have their own theory, I guess, in his time about how they understood the spirit, that from the blood within the heart, because it gets heated up as the heart's pumping, so from there goes up air, a hevel, some type of a moisture that animates the brain. This is why they would assume that if the heart stops, then the brain would not live. But this is all just theoretical stuff from his time. The truth is that none of these are the proper description of the spirit of life. The truth about this spirit is that it's coming directly from the source of life. He is giving this, and this is his. This is something that he holds very dearly. This is called sharing life with the divine, sharing life with the source. And so it's not coming from the air of the heart. It's not coming from a place that is outside the body. The body is simply maintaining itself through this force, and therefore it can maintain all the organs and continue to digest food and create energy. But this force receives life from beyond, and therefore it animates the body. It's not because the body is animated that this force can live. It's because this force lives, therefore the body is animated. Therefore it's called the life force within the worlds. There isn't life within the worlds, not from the elements and not from any other force. There's only life from the source of life. There's no other place to get life. There's no other way to get life. Life doesn't live in elements, it doesn't live in creatures, it doesn't live in any type of biological structure. Only the source of life gives life. If you see a biological structure, it's because the source of life gave life over there. Therefore, there's a biological structure. This biological structure receives life through the spirit that animates it. Where does that spirit receive life? From the source himself. After we said this introduction, now we'll try to explain the Mishnah. So the word achas means the malchus. She's called achas. Like achas shalti meis Hashem ois avakesh. The Melech says that's the malchus. לפיכך כהן גודל מויני ביום הכיפורים אחס, אחס ואחס, אחס ושתיים, אחס ושלוש, אחס וארבע, תל אחס ושבע, לפי שצריך ליחד כהן גודל העטרת עם כל אחס ואחס מהספירס. He's מייחד the malchus with each one. פרש אחס, the malchus, אחס ואחס, אחס רמז לכסר אל הנקרא אחס מכוח האחדוס הפשיטה, לפי שהוא מאחד דמחבר משבר ראש של הצדיק, במחילה וסליחה. And so the Keser Elim is also called Achaz because by him everything unites. The Keser Elim is called Achaz because by him everything unites. ולפי שיצטרך התנא להסחל ביש מאין, לכן הסחל בתר של חוכמה עליונה הנקראת אחז, ואחז רמז לתפארת לפי שהיא מאחד וכושר ואחז בין עליונים ותחתונים מחבר אליס אחד. So also Achas can also mean the Tiferes, because the Tiferes is the one that unites all the sides, and he's the one that's Machriya in the middle. He's the one that is in touch with all the other parts, with the right and the left and the top and the bottom, and he's in the middle, he's the king. He holds the top and the bottom together, he brings the whole tent together to be one. That the middle in the Mishkan there was there was Krashim, there was these chunks of wood that were surrounding the Mishkan, and there were 3 pieces of metal going through in the middle, that were holding them together. So the middle one would go menakotze lakotze, went from one end to the other, and this represents the Tiferes. The Tiferes is the one that goes from one end to the other, because he's holding everything together. Achas remes lateres. This is said already before. Achas, I guess he'll give another reason that why Achas is remes to the Malchus. Because everything that starts coming from the Keser, everything that comes down through all the spheres, comes through her and receives its form within the Malchus. And so everything is coming from above her because she doesn't have her own light. And so there, on Yom Kippur, he's meyachad the Malchus with everyone, because she's the one that receives from all, and he wants to bring kapara. He wants to unite all the relationships, so that the life force will flow to its full potential, so that there will be no resistance to it. A spirit that comes from the divine life. And so it first dresses up in the Keser Elyon, in the first crown, because through him all that receive life receive their portion. The spirit is not a body, and it's not a force within a body, because the forces within the body are below the spirit. The spirit is not dressed within the body. The spirit is what gives force to all the forces that dwell within the body and dress the body. And so all of life comes through that place, comes through that spirit, and when life gets revealed, this is called Ruach HaKodesh. It says, Kol Ruach v'dibur da ki knei ha-gergoris bo yeh Ruach kirei she'eves ha-Ruach emamales kol ha-guf meruach ha-nishav. So the voice box comes up from the lungs, the air comes through the esophagus, not the esophagus, the pipe that carries the wind pipe, and from there it comes out into the mouth, and it creates sound as it leaves. And so the lung is the one that absorbs the air. Every time we breathe, it goes through the lungs. The windpipe is the lane through which the air comes into the lung. And so in the bottom, it's still called ruach, which is the wind, the air that it just took in. But once it rises to the mouth, then we start calling it sound, voice. Say we hear his voice, we don't say we hear his wind. When did it change from wind, from air to voice? As it hits the mouth, as it leaves the windpipe, it becomes a voice. And so kol v'ruach is two separate things. First there was air, and then the air got animated by sound, and it became a voice. And then this voice, once the wind became a voice, then the movement of the tongue and the teeth and the lips are going to create a chita chadibur, are going to create letters and words. And then the concept that the heart is trying to dress is going to take form. ולמדנו וכאן, כי בכל צינר וצינר יש בו המקומס לכלי הדיבר, כי הכל נדמה לצינר. והנה יהיה בכל צינר סופה שיניים לא שנחייך גורן, כמו שבעת לכו, וזה נמצא הם בו אלם המשלם בנפש. And so this, within each pipe, there are ways of animating this pipe. The pressure of the wind has its own levels of what can be adjusted here. The sound of the voice, the pitch of the voice, as it becomes voice, there are different levels that can be animated. And then the actual letters, the way the sound comes out. There's 22 letters, 22 different options of how we're going to address the voice. And so this represents speech, this represents all of creation. These 22 letters represent the forces within creation, within which all was created. When all these three come forth, it's called the Holy Spirit. Ruach b'gematria ha'oreach. לפי שהספירה הראשונה דקו ואינה מקבלת סיר וחקיקה אך במחשב וחכם וכן לא אומר בה חקיקה. Because the first sphere, the keser, where the spirit starts to form, doesn't have any shape, doesn't have any definition, and so he didn't call it chakika. Because it's still coming forth from the Spirit. It's not even yet formulated. Once the speech comes out, the speech gets engraved within consciousness, and then comes forth new speech according to that engravement. This spirit that gets created by the Spirit, this is called the Hakika. And so now when the words are being said, that's coming directly from the Spirit. Once the Spirit reveals these words, they themselves form another spirit. Now when these words go into my ears, a spirit is formed that is not the spirit that said these words, it's the spirit that's receiving these words after they've been said. And that's the Hakika, that's how letters get engraved. This is what creates the spirits that direct humanity how to behave going forward. And so this is the process of life. According to how we create these spirits, according to these divine spirits that we create with speech, life receives form, and this is how life comes out. This is how the Great Spirit, the source, the life force that gets expressed to the highest crown, is going to dress up within the Malchus, is going to come out into reality based on the spirits that we create, the ruchos that we create, the covers that we cover the divine spirit with, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit that gives us the power to speak. Every time we speak, we're dressing him up. The dress that's accurate for him is the dress that reveals his holiness. And so the right speech is the speech that gives back the dignity to the form that is speaking. And this is leaving exile. Leaving exile is when the speech leaves exile. It means that the Holy Spirit can be revealed. And then life is free. Life is free from the oppressor that pretended to know life and was really against life. And then the life force is king, because there's no longer any resistance to him. There's no longer any conflict. And then the divine kingdom can be revealed. May it happen now.